The elevator doors opened to the 32nd floor of Turner and Pierce, and I pushed my cleaning card out quietly, just like I had every evening for the past 8 months. The sun was setting over Manhattan, painting the sleek office in shades of amber as the last few employees hurried to finish their work. "Hey, the cleaner's here," Marcus from accounting called out, not bothering to look up from his screen. "Better hide your trash, guys. She's really thorough." A few chuckles rippled through the open office space. I kept my head down, focusing on my task. They weren't wrong about being thorough, I was. Just not for the reasons they thought. "Oh my God, did you see what she's wearing?" I heard Amy from marketing whisper to her cubicle mate. "Those shoes must be from like Walmart or something." They were actually Italian leather, worth more than her monthly salary. But under my cleaner's uniform, nobody noticed. Nobody ever noticed the person behind the mop. That was exactly why I'd chosen this role. "Evening, miss." Robert Chin, the CFO, nodded absently as he passed me in the hallway. I'd sat across from him in board meetings at my previous company, but here in this uniform I was invisible. Just another face in the background of their corporate lives. 8 months ago, when the board of Turner and Pierce approached me about becoming their new CEO, I had one condition: let me work undercover first. I needed to see the company's true culture, not the polished version they'd show a visiting executive. "You want to work as a cleaner?" Board Chairman William Hayes had asked, bewildered. "But you're Sarah Mitchell. You turned around 3 major corporations. You're on the cover of Business Weekly." "Exactly," I'd replied. "Which is why no one can know who I am. Not until I've seen everything." Now, as I emptied trash bins and wiped down desks, I was getting an education no executive training could provide. I learned who inflated their expense reports, who took credit for others' work, who made life hell for their subordinates while kissing up to superiors. I also saw the hidden gems, people whose talent was being wasted because they didn't fit someone's idea of executive material. Like Maria in IT, who stayed late debugging systems without claiming overtime. Or James in operations, whose innovative process improvements were ignored because he was just a junior analyst. I kept detailed notes on my phone, disguised as a cleaning schedule. Every conversation overheard, every pattern observed, every potential I spotted. The real dirt wasn't in their trash bins. It was in their behavior when they thought no one important was watching. "Hey, cleaner." A sharp voice cut through my thoughts. It was Victoria Pierce, yes, that Pierce. Granddaughter of the founder, current VP of sales, and according to my observations, the biggest obstacle to this company's progress. "My coffee spilled," she said, pointing to a puddle on her desk without looking at me. "Clean it up." I grabbed my cloth and moved toward her desk, noting how she didn't even pause her phone conversation. "No, Daddy, of course the numbers are fine. I've got everything under control here." The numbers weren't fine. I'd seen the real sales reports in the files I was supposed to be recycling. Victoria had been hiding losses for months, cooking books with the help of 2 junior accountants who were too afraid to refuse her. "And make sure you get under the keyboard," she added, waving her manicured hand dismissively. "I don't want anything sticky." "Of course, Miss Pierce," I replied softly, continuing my work. She froze, then turned slowly to look at me, really look at me for the first time. Something in my voice must have caught her attention. But I kept my head down, and after a moment she went back to her call. Later that night, as I was finishing my rounds, I found James from operations still at his desk, surrounded by stacks of papers. "You're here late," I said, emptying his trash bin. He jumped, then gave me a tired smile. "Oh hey. Yeah, trying to fix these process reports. Victoria rejected them again. Says they're too complicated." I glanced at his work. Brilliant analysis, innovative solutions, all presented clearly and concisely. "Looks good to me." He laughed. "Thanks, but what would a cleaner know about corporate process optimization?" I smiled behind my mask. "You'd be surprised." "Well, at least you're nice," he sighed. "Most people here don't even see us. The cleaners, the security guards, the maintenance staff. It's like we're invisible." "Being invisible can be useful," I replied. "You see things others miss." He gave me an odd look, but before he could respond, his phone buzzed. Another message from Victoria, demanding the reports be simplified further. "I should go," he said, gathering his things. "Big meeting tomorrow. Apparently some new CEO is starting next week." Probably another corporate robot who won't understand what we actually do here. If he only knew. I finished my shift and headed to my real apartment, not the modest one listed in my cleaner's personnel file. As I shed the uniform and stepped into my shower, I thought about tomorrow. My last day of being invisible. My phone buzzed with a message from William Hayes. Board meeting at 9 a.m. Ready to make your grand entrance. I texted back, more than ready. And William? Make sure Victoria Pierce is there. I have some interesting files to discuss. Tomorrow they'd learn that the woman they'd ignored, mocked, and dismissed wasn't just there to clean their offices. She was there to clean house. And some people were about to learn the hard way that karma sometimes carries a mop. The next morning I arrived at Turner & Pierce wearing a tailored Chanel suit and Louboutin heels, a far cry from my cleaner's uniform. The security guard at the desk, Mike, did a double take as I approached. "Good morning, Mike," I said using the same quiet tone I'd used every night for 8 months. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" His eyes widened in recognition. You're the... I handed him my new ID badge, executive level CO access. Still the same person. Just different clothes. He broke into a huge grin. "Oh man, this is going to be good." The elevator ride to the 32nd floor felt different this morning. No cart to push, no uniform to hide behind. Just me, my briefcase, and 8 months of carefully gathered intelligence about every person in this building. The office was buzzing with anticipation about the new CO. I could hear snippets of conversation as I walked through the open workspace, unrecognized for the moment. I heard she turned around Maxwell Industries in just 2 years. Apparently she's ruthless. Think she'll clean house? That last comment from Marcus in accounting made me smile. He had no idea how right he was. I walked into the conference room where the board was gathering. William Hayes saw me first, his face breaking into a knowing smile. "Sarah," he said warmly, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Welcome to your first official day." The room fell silent. Victoria Pierce, who had been arranging papers at the head of the table, my seat, looked up sharply. "Sarah Mitchell?" she said, recognition dawning on her face. But you usually clean your coffee spills?" I finished pleasantly. "Yes, among other things." The color drained from her face as the implications hit her. Every condescending remark, every dismissive gesture, every phone conversation she'd had thinking no one important was listening, I'd been there for all of it. "Please, everyone take your seats," I said, moving to the head of the table. "We have a lot to discuss." Victoria stumbled to a chair, still staring at me in horror. The other board members shifted uncomfortably, probably running through every interaction they'd had with the cleaning staff over the past months. "First," I began, opening my briefcase, "I want to thank you all for this unique opportunity to really understand Turner & Pierce from the ground up. It's been illuminating." I pulled out a stack of folders, 8 months of observations, documentation, and evidence. "Now let's talk about some interesting patterns I've noticed. Starting with the sales department's creative accounting practices." Victoria's face went from pale to gray. "I don't know what your dash. Page 47 of your report shows $12 million in phantom sales." I cut her off smoothly. "The same $12 million that disappeared from the operations budget, only to reappear as consulting fees paid to a company registered to your brother's address." The board members began flipping through their copies of the report, murmuring in shock. That's confidential information." Victoria sputtered. "Amazing what people leave in their trash," I replied. "Or what they say when they think the cleaning staff is just part of the furniture." William Hayes leaned forward. "Sarah, what are you suggesting?" "I'm not suggesting anything. I'm stating facts. Facts that will be presented to the SEC unless significant changes are made. Starting with the immediate resignation of certain parties." Victoria stood up, her chair scraping loudly. "This is ridiculous. I'm a Pierce. This company bears my name. And you've dishonored that name," I said quietly. "The security team is waiting outside. They'll escort you to clear out your office. Don't worry about the coffee stains, I know someone who can clean those up." As Victoria was led out, I turned to the remaining board members. "Now let's discuss the real changes this company needs. Starting with promoting the talent you've been ignoring." I pressed the intercom. "Please send in James Chin from operations." James walked in looking nervous and confused. He stopped short when he saw me. You're new CEO, I nodded. And you're our new Director of Operations Excellence. Unless you think that's too complicated for us corporate robots to understand. He flushed, remembering his words from the night before. But then he straightened up, a slow smile spreading across his face. No, ma'am. Not too complicated at all. Good. Because we're about to make some very interesting changes around here. As the board meeting continued, my phone buzzed with messages from throughout the building. Word was spreading fast about the cleaner who was actually the CEO. Marcus from accounting, about those trash jokes. Amy from marketing, your shoes. I am so sorry. Various others expressing variations of panic and regret. I smiled, remembering every dismissive comment, every condescending glance. But this wasn't about revenge. It was about transformation. About seeing who people really were, not who they pretended to be when the bosses were watching. Because sometimes the best way to clean up a company isn't with a mop, it's with the truth. The next few weeks at Turner & Pierce were a whirlwind of changes. The old guard who had coasted on nepotism and office politics found themselves facing a CEO who knew exactly where all the bodies were buried, because she'd literally cleaned around them. I sat in my new office, reviewing personnel files when Maria from IT knocked on my door. She was still wearing her usual casual clothes. I'd immediately abolished the arbitrary dress code that had kept talented tech people from advancing. Ms. Mitchell? The system audit you requested is complete. She hesitated. It's worse than we thought. I gestured for her to sit. Tell me. Victoria Pierce didn't just cook the books. She installed backdoors in our client databases, sold competitive information. And she wasn't alone. We found similar patterns across 3 departments. I nodded, unsurprised. Send everything to legal. And Maria? You're our new Chief Technology Officer. The board approved it this morning. Her eyes widened. But I'm not. I mean, I don't have the typical executive profile. You mean you're not from an Ivy League school? Don't play golf? Don't have the right last name? I smiled. Neither did I. What you do have is talent, integrity, and a work ethic I witnessed firsthand while everyone else was heading home at 5 p.m. As Maria left my office, I saw Marcus hovering nervously by the door. The same Marcus who used to joke loudly about the help. Come in, Marcus, I called. I assume this is about the audit? He walked in looking like he was heading to his own execution. Ms. Mitchell, I can explain the discrepancies in the reports. You mean the ones you helped Victoria hide? I opened a folder on my desk. Sit down, Marcus. Let's talk about your future. His face went pale. Please. I have a family. I know. 3 kids. College tuition coming up. That's why you went along with Victoria's schemes, isn't it? Afraid of losing your job if you didn't play along? He nodded miserably. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. You're going to provide a full written statement to legal about everything you witnessed. Then you're going to help us clean up this mess. Do that and you keep your job, though not in accounting. Where then? Compliance. Because sometimes the best person to prevent fraud is someone who knows how it works. I held his gaze. Consider it your chance at redemption. As Marcus left, visibly relieved, my assistant buzzed in. Your 2 o'clock is here. The entire sales team. I smiled. Send them in. 30 nervous sales executives filed into my conference room. Many of them had been part of Victoria's inner circle, spreading her toxic culture throughout the company. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, let's talk about the real numbers. Not the ones you've been reporting, but the actual state of our client relationships. For the next hour, I detailed everything I'd observed during my time as the invisible cleaner. The client complaints ignored, the junior staff bullied, the corners cut. But that's all changing, I announced. Starting today, commissions will be based on client satisfaction, not just sales numbers. And speaking of satisfaction, I pressed a button and James appeared with a cart, not unlike my old cleaning cart. Coffee service, I announced. Since so many of you enjoyed having others serve you, you'll now take turns providing coffee for the whole office. Starting with the executive level. Consider it a lesson in humility. The looks on their faces were priceless. Over the next 6 months, Turner & Pierce underwent a complete transformation. We promoted overlooked talent, rebuilt client trust, and created a culture where work ethic mattered more than office politics. The press called it a miracle turnaround. "Undercover CEO cleans house and doubles profits," read the Wall Street Journal headline. But the real satisfaction came from smaller moments, like watching Maria revolutionize our tech infrastructure, or seeing James implement process improvements that saved millions, or observing Marcus, of all people, become a dedicated watchdog against corporate fraud. 1 year after my first day as the cleaner, I stood addressing the entire company at our annual meeting. The room was different now, more diverse, more energetic, more authentic. "Some of you knew me first as the person who cleaned your offices," I began. "You thought that meant I was beneath you. What you didn't understand is that true leadership isn't about being above others. It's about being willing to do what others won't." I gestured to the wall behind me, where we'd hung a new company motto: "Excellence starts at every level. Every role matters. Every person contributes. And sometimes, the most important insights come from the people you never thought to listen to." After the meeting, I did something that shocked everyone. I changed into my old cleaner's uniform and grabbed a mop. "What are you doing?" William Hayes asked, bewildered. "Reminding everyone, including myself, where we came from," I replied. "And making sure we never forget what we learned." I cleaned the entire executive floor that night just like I used to. But this time something was different. One by one, executives and managers appeared, taking up cleaning supplies, pitching in. Even Marcus was there, awkwardly pushing a vacuum cleaner. "I don't know how you did this every night," he admitted. "That's exactly the point," I smiled. "How you do. Because sometimes the best way to lead isn't from above, but from beside. And sometimes the most powerful position isn't at the top of the org chart. It's wherever you can see the truth about who people really are." As I finally headed home that night, I passed Mike at security. "Quite a year, Ms. Mitchell," he grinned. "Just Sarah," I corrected him. "After all, we cleaned these floors together." And that's the thing about true transformation. It doesn't just change how others see you. It changes how you see yourself. Because sometimes the view from the bottom shows you exactly what needs to be fixed at the top.